Mr. Holden, you have item 4, AB 2370. You may fire when ready, Mr. Holden.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to present AB 2370 today. AB 2370 requires the Department of Social Services, in conjunction with the State Water Resources Control Board, to adopt requirements to ensure that child care centers' drinking water is lead-free. The bill also allows all licensed child daycare facilities to borrow no-interest loans to pay for lead cleanup and drinking water systems improvements. Drinking water at most child care centers is not tested for lead. This is a problem because many water pipes, faucets, and fixtures still in use contain lead, and over time this lead can leach into the drinking water. Yet we know young children are the most harmed by lead because they absorb much of the lead they ingest. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics and Centers for Disease Control, there is no safe level of lead in children. Lead is a severe neurotoxin. Even minute amounts of lead in the bodies of very young children cause harm to their central nervous systems, and this harm appears to be irreversible. AB 2370 will help keep youngest children safe by ensuring they are not ingesting lead through the water they drink. I have with me Andrea Ventura from Clean Water Action and Susan Little from the Environmental Working Group to join me in presenting this bill, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Move the bill.
Second.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Susan Little. I'm with the Environmental Working Group, the sponsor of this bill. As you know, exposure to just a tiny amount of lead can reduce a child's IQ and cognitive abilities, and young children absorb 50% of the lead they ingest. If they're malnourished, they absorb it even faster. So it's not a surprise that the California Department of Public Health states that 88% of lead-poisoned children come from low-income families, and these families often receive subsidized child care. Because child care centers don't have to test their drinking water for lead, we don't really know if their water contains a neurotoxin, but testing that has been done indicates that some centers have a problem. Recently, the drinking water at 1 East Oakland Child Care Center was shown to have 17 times the allowable limit of lead. And a pilot project performed by the Environmental Defense Fund involving 11 centers in four states found that a third of those centers had drinking water with lead levels well above the EPA standard. AB 2370 requires DSS to enforce the existing drinking water requirements and allows centers and facilities to use an underutilized no-interest loan program to pay for lead remediation. We appreciate the committee's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yep.
Thank you.
2.5 minutes. She was fast.
Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Andrea Ventura. I am the Toxics Program Manager for Clean Water Action. Our organization works to preserve and protect drinking water and water resources, and we are also a member of a national coalition called the Lead Service Line Collaborative, which are NGOs, public health agencies, and water agencies trying to eliminate lead from our water distribution systems. As Ms. Little just alluded to, we are deeply concerned about the health of children. It turns out that children under the age of 2 are particularly vulnerable because younger children actually absorb more lead and their growing brains are more susceptible to change. Formula-fed infants are even at greater risk. They consume the most water per body weight, and 60% of babies are exclusively formula fed, so they're consuming up to 4 cups of water a day. Now, while we do have a lead and copper rule in California that protects drinking water sources, what's happening is it's the connections within the buildings that are causing the contamination and the problem and exposures. And our current regulatory program cannot oversee all of these buildings. Last year, Assembly Bill 746, authored by Assemblymember Gonzalez Fletcher, began to address this concern by requiring testing of taps at schools built before 2010. That testing is happening, and we're finding that 5% of the taps that have been tested thus far are above the official detection limit of 5 parts per billion, and many have up to 15 parts per billion. So the problem is very real. We believe that the results of testing to date warrant the expansion of the testing requirement to include all licensed daycare centers to protect those that are most vulnerable in our population. And we are proud to be here and thank Assemblymember Holden for this important bill.
Okay. Others in support?
Linda Way with Western Center on Law and Poverty in support.
Teresa Anderson with the ARC and UCP California Collaboration in support.
Daniel Savino, Association of Regional Center Agencies, also in support.
Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California. Support.
All right. Do we have opposition? Does not look like it. All right. On Mr. Holden's bill, which is testing for lead in child care facilities, Madam Vice Chair, do you have any questions? We do have a motion in a second. Well, do you want us to give you a minute? And I'll see.
I'm sorry, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll give you a minute. Did you have any questions, Ms. Friedman?
No.
All right. We'll just wait till you're ready. Don't rush yourself. We've got time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for having to step out briefly. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but in this case, parents would be required to or asked to provide a blood test for their child to the child care facility. Is that correct?
I think my understanding is that they're asked if their child has been tested. And if they've been tested, then obviously providing the results of that. I don't know if we're actually requiring, but I do believe that if there would be a question asked, has your child been tested for lead poisoning?
Okay.
Or
And
lead exposure, I should say.
so if it's, I guess if it's not required, then it would probably be hard to track or identify if there is a problem or if there isn't, right? That's the point of this, I think, is to figure out which children are having an elevated level of lead in their systems that may be from their water supply, and so we want the testing to be done so we could, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so if they're not required to do the test, then I guess it's harder to, I guess for me, I feel like.
If I could,
Sure.
I think one of the things, the reason why the bill also calls out the low interest loan that's available is so that the operators would also be responsible for ensuring that that they can do the repairs if there is repairs that are necessary, where through the pipes, the faucets, if there was some testing done to the infrastructure and determine that there was lead in the pipes that it could leach into the water, then there is a financial safeguard, if you will, to allow for those providers to be able to make the appropriate improvements.
I guess I'm, as a parent who's had kids go through, not daycare, but preschool, why are we not just saying to these facilities, you must have your water tested annually or biannually, rather than put the burden on the parents to test to make sure that.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, if I may.
Please do.
So the bill has essentially two parts. One is the part that requires the facilities to test their water, which is essentially it's requiring DSS to establish a testing requirement for water in the child care facilities, and that's to enforce the existing requirement that they have to provide non-contaminated water to the children. Separate from that, and similar to what 6 other states have done, as well as the city of San Diego, it requires the providers just to check in with the parents and ask them if they've had their child blood lead tested. Many of these parents are parents who are on CalWORKs, and they have child care vouchers, so their children ideally should be having their blood lead tested, at least under current testing practices. So what other states have done, and what this again is proposing to do, is to have the providers essentially be a point of check-in. The child can still be enrolled in the facility if they haven't had their blood lead tested, and if they have, that's fine. If they haven't, then all the bill requires the provider to do is to hand over information to the parent about blood lead testing, and lead risks. What other states have done is they collect from the parent then some sort of proof paper demonstrating that there was a test if that has happened. This bill itself isn't requiring that right now, isn't requiring the documentation, just simply the verbal check-in. But other states have done the required documentation as part of it. Yeah, thank you.
I might say to the Vice Chair, we had a very long hearing on this issue. So kids who are on Medi-Cal, WICS program, in theory are required to have this test done. Some do and some don't, and we were trying to get at. And the reason for that is they typically live in older homes where there's a possibility of lead contamination, either in the pipes or the paint or whatever. But there isn't great compliance. Now, again, under those programs, the test is paid for, so we're not putting a burden on the parents, and this is just asking for a check-in. So they don't have to do anything, and if they are not capable of paying, the chances are the kids are on a program that will pay for it. So I think I hope that resolves the issue in your mind. Okay, sort of. All right.
No, I mean, it does to a certain extent, but I really appreciate the added clarity on this because my mic's not.
Yeah, any concern you have is a concern of mine.
Okay, thank you. I mean,
He
obviously.
doesn't have any concerns.
Well, then we're done here. No, again, with many of the bills that have come through today, I'm with you in the concept. I just had some concerns. I'm still a little hesitant, so I don't know. Maybe someone else wants to chime in, or did you already chime in? Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the concern exactly?
Well, I also, and I didn't write it. It's here in my analysis. I didn't write down. It has to do with the standards that are being set. Is it the same as the standard for K through 12 as far as the parts, the PPS, the parts per
billion?
Yeah, is it the same standard of testing? Because I was under the impression that it's not, but maybe I missed the part of the discussion where you said it is.
It is actually what it's doing. It's different from the lead testing in schools requirement, where it was all laid out in the bill. This bill is requiring Department of Social Services, in conjunction with the Water Board, to determine how the testing is going to take place, which includes the definition of what is lead safe.
So it's not following federal guidelines or other state guidelines for K through 12, and that is why?
It specifically we decided it was better because that issue, the question of what is the safe level of lead for the child care facilities is subject to the Water Board's determination as to what is the appropriate.
So you're letting the
standard.
experts decide.
Exactly. We're letting the experts make that decision as to what should be in there. And the Water Board is actually looking at the lead standard for water right now, and so we don't want to legislate that in the bill. And think it's just better that the regulators take a look at this in this regard, because it's going to be yet 2 years out before the testing is actually required.
I think she might have had something to add as well. Did you have something?
I was just going to say that I think it does make sense to have the experts look at this, because there is, as I had testified, we are finding that lead is most toxic to children under 6 and even more toxic to children under 2 and infants and babies, because they are consuming more water and absorbing more lead. So there may be an age differential. The experts would be able to determine that.
All right. So I think we've pretty well defined it. I don't know if the vice chair is happy or not, but at least I think we've defined it enough for you now. Okay, good. All right. Let's see. Have we had a motion yet? Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. There's been a motion and a second. I'd like you to close.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the conversation. I think it's very important. I am always sort of shocked sometimes when I see issues that have not already been addressed through legislation or some type of administrative actions, and this is one of them. When you think that you have so many of our young people who are in child care facilities every single day, 700,000 in the state of California, and they're exposed, this becomes a very necessary bill to put a light and attention in a very important area and start to treat our youngest as we treat our oldest. So I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
All right. I'll give you the aye vote.
I appreciate that.
Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Item number 4, AB 2370, Holden. The motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Melendez? Melendez not voting. Arambula? Bro? Friedman? Aye. Friedman, aye. Holden?
Aye.
Holden, aye. Muratsuchi? No, not here. So we have 3 votes. We'll hold it open.